This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another great show. We have another fantastic interviewee waiting to talk to us. Now, you may not remember, but one of the most fun stand-up comics that ever come through the club was this big, scary-looking guy that turned out to be one of the nicest guys in the business. Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the podcast, Tree. Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you so much. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. That was a proper intro. Yeah. You may not remember this guy because it was 1,000 years ago.
I just meant that without seeing you.
You may as well have been named Shecky.
Well, we should let everybody know that Tree's real name is Michael West, and he was a performer back in the 80s and 90s and worked for me several times, and we just had a blast having him on stage. But Michael had a stage persona by going by the name Tree. And I just want to set the folks up, and then we'll jump into the interview, if you don't mind, Michael.
Yeah, no problem. Go for it.
So Michael is a big guy. He's probably about 6'8". He's got a shaved head.
Oh, no, I'm 6'4".
Well, you're 6'4". With the lifts, you were 6'8".
Well, yeah, and with your stage, yeah.
But he is a big guy that has shaved head.
Huge.
And
I'm massive. I block out the sun.
He wore a black leather jacket, kind of like you'd picture from the biker movies, and black leather chaps, and was kind of an intimidating figure.
Kinda.
Okay, you were a scary-looking guy, and you would come on stage, and everybody in the room would kind of lean back a little bit. And what was so interesting was that you had this kind of scary, big persona on stage, but off stage, a lot of the staff commented on you being one of the nicest guys they ever worked with. And by the way, thank you for that. When I told several of the old staff people that I was going to be interviewing you, they were not only very excited that we connected, but wanted to share that you were one of their favorite people to work with because you were such a nice guy off stage. So thank you for that.
There's that, but then when I would go through the rules at the beginning of my set, rule number one was always tip your server, which I would reinforce in the course of the evening because I came from a background of over close to 30 years in food and beverage. Bartender. I cooked in my mom's restaurant when I was 13. Things like that. So food and beverage is still in my blood.
Well, so you imagine this big, intimidating guy laid out in black leather, coming out and pointing at the audience and saying, "You will tip the waitresses."
I learned after a while you say the word server.
Servers. Well, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
But still, it was a great way to start off your set. So let's back up a little bit because I know what working with you, how that was at Laughs. But share with the audience, how did you kind of fall into stand-up comedy?
Well, it's something that I have loved since I was a kid, and I'm probably dating myself, but growing up watching the old Ed Sullivan Show and shows, the variety shows, I always loved it when the comedians came on. Again, like Shecky Green, Myron Cohen, the old Borscht Belt comics were the first ones. And then it evolved into, Cosby, Carlin, Richard Pryor before he turned into Richard Pryor. And I always noticed that when people were watching, family was watching it, everybody was laughing. And so everybody was in a good mood. And I always liked humor. I always liked being, joking around with my friends and being the funny guy. And so one day, back in the 80s, as you know, when comedy took off and all you had to do was slap up a comedy sign on a bar and you could misspell it. But the place would be packed because comedy was the new rock and roll, and basically low overhead because you just had a slab of meat and a microphone and a light. It was really easy to put on. So that's how I got into it. Was one Saturday morning, I woke up, I wasn't hungover, And I'd seen in the San Jose Mercury News, Lee Weimers was a columnist back then, and that this guy named Dan Scow was teaching an improv comedy class at the Last Laugh. I think you probably remember that place.
Sure.
Yeah. So I literally grabbed myself by the collar and took myself down. I said, it's time to, just do it. The worst that can happen is you'll be horrible. And then you'll know. Because, one of these things growing up, hey, you're a funny guy. We still like to do accents and joke around. And so I went down, and at the end of it, the guy came up to me, and I was going, he's going to hate me. He's going to go, hey, you know what? You really suck. You need to leave. He goes, hey, you're really funny. Can you do other things? And that was my Harry Potter moment. When Hagrid says to Harry Potter, "You're a wizard, Harry," and suddenly it's like, oh, you mean everything I do is valid?
Oh, that's great.
So that's how it started. So I started out doing improv comedy with a group, and the guy Dan Scow, late great departed, unfortunately, but he was a DJ at an oldie station in San Jose, and so he set up an open mic at a place called Captain Cook's in Cupertino. And we didn't actually expect to perform in front of people. We thought it was just going to be the class. And he goes, oh, no, you're going to perform in front of an audience. And we were scared out of our brains. But we started doing that. And so we opened for the open mic. So I got to meet a bunch of, comedians. Rob Schneider used to come down and do sets. Because that was back, like I say, at the time when, comedy was everywhere. You could drive around the Bay Area and do, 4 or 5 sets a night, if you timed it out right.
Yeah, it was it was an incredible time.
It was the Wild West, yeah.
I actually helped the Last Laugh open their doors and get started as a comedy club. But what year was it that you were doing this improv group? Around.
Let's say 84, 85, maybe.
So the comedy boom was really flowing then. As you mentioned, clubs were open all over the place. You found
Everywhere.
Your voice on stage as part of an improv troupe. And that's a great way. Go ahead.
As far as getting on stage, yes. Actually being able to perform on stage, having never done it before. And I was in my 30s at that point. I'd always thought about it, never done it. The inspiration for the crowd control aspect of Tree came one night. I went to an open mic someplace, and I just sucked. It was horrible. I mean, people not only didn't like me, but they vocalized how much they didn't like me. And so I was driving home, and I was just sad. So I got home, poured myself a couple of nice stiff drinks, smoked a big fat joint, and sat down, and World Wrestling Federation came on, Vince McMahon. And so I'm watching this, and I'm high. And the guy, Gene Okerlund, he was like the little announcer guy, little kind of pudgy guy. He comes out, he starts, our next match is going to be, and suddenly Hulk Hogan comes out, grabs a microphone, and starts screaming into the camera. And that's when the light bulb went off. What I need to do is I need to intimidate the audience before they intimidate me. Someone has to establish order. Someone has to establish the rules. I said, because everybody else, you saw, a billion comics. Hey, how you guys doing? Nice to be here. Hey, where you from? Trying to make the audience like them. I forced the audience to like me. I forced the audience to
not necessarily
follow my rhythm.
Like you, but they had to pay attention. You took control of the room from the very first words out of your mouth.
Well, you had to because having been an audience member, you're in a room full of strangers who have been drinking. And mayhem could easily break out. So somebody has to be in control of the room. And so I just took it. That's the angle that I approached it at, and eventually evolved into, what I was doing. But it came out of fear and depression.
Well, it's interesting because I've interviewed over 40 entertainers to this point, and everybody kind of had a similar but different experience. In other words, everybody's intimidated and scared at first. Everybody got their start by falling on stage through some other improv or theater or, some open mic somewhere. But if you find your voice on stage, and in your case, you found a character, Tree, that gave you the ability to control the room and then share your material, and we want to let the audience in on a little secret, you would come out and do about 10 minutes of this kind of really butch, scary
Oh, yeah.
authoritative attitude, but it was really funny. You had good material, but what really set you apart, and I'm going to give away the big secret, is that you would like snap, and all of a sudden you're this big guy in leather chaps and a leather jacket and totally gay.
Absolutely gay, effeminate. I've had gay comedians in San Francisco say, "You know what, Tree? You're gayer than I am." I think it was Scott Capurro said that to me one time. And he goes, "God, Tree, you're even more gay than I am." And just as an aside story, one of the many best nights I had working at Laughs was I come out and I'm doing that shtick. And there's these two guys, basically trailer trash looking guys, flannel shirts, seed hats. They probably had shoe in their back pocket, and they were just going with me all the way. Yeah, chicks are stupid. They're just going crazy. And then I whip out the fan and start doing, I call the character Therman. I whip out the fan and start doing Therman. And these guys were horrified. And they were sitting right up front, dead center up front next to the speakers. And they were horrified. And they were like, no, you can't do that, no. And they actually scuttled out of the club. This was, the Old Sack Club.
Oh, that's funny.
But as they were running out, they were telling people, he's a queer. They made them say, he's got a gun.
It was so funny because you always took the audience by, just shocked them and surprised them when you switched to the other character. And we should let the audience know that you had some specific bits, as you called him Therman. I didn't know that.
That was the name of the character.
Therman, and still in black leather chaps and jacket, and do this perfect gay persona doing material. And after about another 10 minutes, you would revert back and go back to being Tree and
being authoritative, but not as aggressively butch as the opening part, but still maintaining control, which I think people like that.
Oh, that's what I was going to say, Trees. People really love the fact that you were not only funny in both characters, but you presented both characters totally separate and yet together. It was really a unique and creative act. I always appreciated it.
Well, one of the most fun aspects of it was controlling the audience's laughter. Because as you know, comedians want laughs per minute. That was a big thing. The LPMs, club owners would sometimes, how many laughs per minute do you get? And I would not let the audience laugh sometimes. They were laughing. I go, no, settle, no.
I remember that. That was so funny. Settle.
They're sitting there. They're sitting there like, no, but we want to go. And then I would go, okay, now. And then they start laughing. Okay, this may sound weird. Please don't take this weird. But I remember, growing up, my generation, we watched a lot of World War II stuff. And I remember watching Triumph of the Will, Hitler's big rally, the Leni Riefenstahl.
Right.
And the idea of crowd control, because that was a thing, that was one of the few things Hitler was really good at.
Oh, he was a salesman from the get-go.
He would, to actually not to fear the silence. To make the audience come to you, to want to hear what you have to say.
Well, it's the same idea as if you really want people to pay attention, whisper, because they will move in and pay more attention.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily screaming at them all the time, which, of course, Hitler did a lot of. But you're right. He, as a great orator, you had the ability to control the audience, first from a character point of view as Tree, but then you became Therman and came back as a softer, nicer Tree. But I do really remember how the audience would just be howling, and you'd point them and almost like a teacher, wave your finger, settle, settle.
Yeah.
It was really fun to experience. And audience, I do have a little bit of Tree's material at the end of this interview, so stay tuned. So Tree, I don't recall exactly, how did you come to work at Laughs?
Well, again, there was, comedy was everywhere on every street corner. You could, get a prescription for it at the drugstore. So I wanted to expand my horizons outside the Bay Area, and actually Sacramento was only a couple hours away. Somebody said, "Oh, you should try Laugh," and this up front. Everybody warned me about you. Number one, Scott's cheap. And I'm like, oh, but I'm getting paid to do comedy. That's, I've done it for beers. I've done it for drink tickets. I've done it for free. If I could actually work in a club. So I came up and I'm not sure if I sent you a tape or if I did a guest set. I'm not sure how it worked.
Well, I know that you worked for me several times and always wowed the audience.
You always, the thing was, you were one of the guys who gave me my first big breaks to actually work in a legitimate comedy club for a week. To do, well, the thing was, with your club, you always opened. The opening act wasn't really the MC. The opening act was an opening act. You did 15 minutes, boom, you're done for the night. Rather than, that was the only drawback, was not being able to hone the MC skills. Because, when you're starting out, you're always going to be the MC. You're going to be the guy, hey, everybody, welcome to the club, blah, 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 tip your servers, deeter. But it gave me a chance to actually work a legitimate comedy club. Because, I saw the names you had on your wall. You've had some of the creme de la creme of comedians go through your club. So it wasn't just like some little crap hole one night or someplace.
Well, thank you.
But it gave me the chance to have that solid 15 or so.
Well, you developed really quickly. You didn't stay an opening act long.
No, you brought me along real fast. Well, and one of the things that helped me along was, you said, well, you're a blue act. I have to use you with another blue act. And I remember you first booked me with Jack Marion. And I said, when you book the blue comics, do you lose money? He said, oh, no, we make more.
Yeah, we didn't do it. We didn't do it often, but Jack Marion was an expert and at being dirty and yet being entertaining. He wasn't. Well,
he wasn't even really dirty though.
Well, it wasn't F-bombs. It was the material. It was talking about coitus.
Yeah, exactly.
To put it in a nerd term. But his gift was being able to entertain both sexes by talking about sexual relations from each point of view. He was just genius. Yeah. But working with him had to have expanded your experience.
I can't recall if anything he said really influenced me, but because of the fact that he existed, I was able to have a gig. Because you certainly wouldn't have booked me like, with Gary Shandling or, anybody like that, Milt Abel, any of the more, I don't want to say middle of the road because that's usually a derogatory term, but,
clean headliners.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, clean comedy, which I find abhorrent.
But but here's why. Because you were such a strong character, it needed somebody strong to follow you. In other words, it's not that Seinfeld or Leno couldn't follow you. It just because you started off the shows either as a opening act or feature with such a strong character in Tree that it would have, why put the headliner in that kind of position? Well, I want to do what's best for the show. And I knew somebody like Jack Marion or somebody high energy like Amazing Jonathan or Bruce Baum could follow you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, easily. Those two guys, yeah, without question.
Yeah, it was about an energy thing because you really brought an energy to the stage. Now, you worked for me several times. Any specific memories besides chasing out the two dirtbags from working your years at Laughs?
The two homophobes?
Yeah.
And as you always joke, they were probably from Rio Linda, so that was your go-to white trash place. I remember.
Right.
I remember one night specifically, and don't hold this against me. I smoked just a little bit of pot for the first time in my life before I went on stage. Not a lot, just a little bit. Your club was a club in which I was incredibly comfortable, and I wanted to see what would happen. I didn't overdo it, and it was a night where the universe aligned perfectly. And I was doing this one bit about describing a particular position, where the man's behind the woman, whatever. And for some reason, I took my time describing that position. and it just went so slow, and I could feel the audience going, "Oh!" Because it was done in a long, drawn out, sensual way. And the biggest thing I remember was I went upstairs after the show, and I walked through the door, and I got a standing ovation, spontaneous standing ovation from the people in the bar. And it was like,
that is something you'll never forget.
Oh, no. Well, the thing was, it also taught me that, again, it's okay to slow down. You don't have to rush through your material. You can savor it, not just necessarily serve it up.
Yeah, and you're bringing a good point to anybody that wants to get into stand-up comedy that's listening to these podcasts, that a lot of times out of anxiety and fear of the stage, when you hit it, you tend to rush through your material and not allow the audience to experience and share in the moment. And I think the secret to being a professional is allowing the audience to take in the moment and share it with the entertainer. And sometimes that takes time. There's been a lot of examples of famous comics and comedians over the years that would do a longer than comfortable pregnant pause after making a statement. And that pause in itself can sometimes be funny. It's all about, I think it's interesting because I've been working on a comedy course for people. And I know that as an MC, when I was on stage, initially you would have that fear that if I quit talking, people are going to get up and leave. Right? And it's just the anxiety of the moment. But the reality is the audience is paid to be there. They're committed to being entertained. They want you to succeed. And they're going to give you time, in most cases, to, work with them and relate to them. And I think it's interesting that you noted that, and that's a really good thing to learn. But I got to go back to the standing ovation. We always had the audiences. We would flow them into an after-show bar. And for them to give you a standing ovation after the show in a separate setting had to have felt amazing.
Oh, it did. It was, but it just reinforced, the theory that I had that it's okay to take your time with stuff. It validated. So going forward from that point, I was able to, again, not fear the silence, not fear things slowing down a little bit. So long as I knew, it's like a piece of music. There are certain points in a concerto where, maybe it slows down. Maybe it, takes its time. But so long as you got something coming with it and it's not just one low key thing, you pick your times to produce or pull back on the energy. And again, sometimes not allowing the audience to laugh.
Yeah.
Forcing silence, which comics, like, why would you do that? Why don't you want them to laugh? I said, because they want to, and I'm not going to let them.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to, they're going to have to follow my orders.
Well, that's a good analogy. It is like music. It has to have a flow and a pattern to it. By the way, everybody that's listening, you might have heard a whistle. That's not Tree hitting on me. He's got a very nice looking.
I use a wolf whistle.
Parrot named.
I'm that old.
Piper.
Piper the bird. Yeah.
Piper the bird's in the background and is enjoying listening to Michael tell his story. So I know that after several years in Northern California and kind of getting your feet wet, you did make the big move down to Los Angeles. And how long were you in LA? I know it was not until 2006 when you came back.
Right. Yeah. No, we went down. I was trying to remember when we went down, and I remember it was 9/11 was in 2000, right, or 2001.
2001.
Yeah. We went down there because I was doing a temp job for Toyota, which just really sucked. But that's another story. But that was that's when we moved down there. Chris and I said, hey, let's give it a shot. Her company, Sun Microsystems, was good enough to say, she was saying, hey, we're going to go do this. And they said, we don't want to lose you. So they let her telecommute from Los Angeles back to the Bay Area. So she worked from home.
Oh, that's cool.
They had an office set up down there by the airport. She could go in there every so often if she needed to. And periodically she'd have to fly back up to the Bay Area. But So we went down, made the move down to LA and started that process.
Now, just to catch the audience up, a lot of comics will start their career out of the big hubs like Sacramento or Boston or Denver, and they will go to either New York, San Francisco, or Los Angeles. In your case, you'd already made a name for yourself in the Bay Area and San Francisco. When you shifted to LA, how did they accept the tree character?
Actually, they didn't. And because I only did a couple of gigs, and I realized that was not going to be the path I would need to take in order to be seen by the industry. So I didn't. What I did was I started getting involved with theater. I took a writing class at Second City. Used to hang around Second City because there was no way I could compress what I do on stage into 3 minutes.
Yeah, and that's
it was
true.
Just not possible.
That at the
It
store,
took me 3 minutes just to get on stage.
right? The Comedy Store and the Improv, a lot of times, especially open mics, you're only given 3 to 5 minutes. And if you're ever going to showcase for a television spot, the maximum they'll give you is 3 minutes. And it's true that your character Tree, and especially with the transition to Therman, I mean, you needed time to really make that work. I'm disappointed it didn't take in LA, but I'm not, I guess, that surprised.
Oh, no, neither am I.
Yeah,
No,
knowing
not at
how
all.
it works down there. Well, that's a little disappointing, though. It sounds like you didn't really get the shot you deserved.
Well, it wasn't really disappointing. What it was the reality of it. It's like, okay, so what are you going to do? So I ended up getting more involved with theater, naturally going on auditions. I went to some casting workshops, which are, some people love them, some people hate them. You go there and there'll be a representative from a casting agency. And sometimes it will actually be a real honest-to-God casting agent. Sometimes it'll be some little minor functionary in a casting agency who goes there to make a few extra bucks.
Right.
They'll bring in some old hackneyed scripts and, they pair you up with somebody, you go out, you rehearse, you come back in and you do your audition. But from that, I got my famous 10 lines on Malcolm in the Middle, which believe it or not, but you probably know this, I still get residual checks.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They might only be for like, 8, 9, sometimes $10, depending upon the market, which leads me to think, you wonder how much, the rest of them are getting.
Right.
That got me my 10 lines to actually experience what it was like to actually be on a television. It was out in Canyon Country because they were doing a thing where one of the characters, Reese, joins the Army. So this was an Army thing. I played an Army captain, and I had my 10 lines. So I can say, yep, I did it. I was on TV.
Well, that's good.
So,
I wasn't aware of that. And I think that at least, as you said, gave you the opportunity to at least experience a television set and getting on air and getting some small residual checks. Hey, it pays for the bubble gum, right?
Well, it pays for at least one Starbucks. Yeah. but the thing was, I got a week's worth of work because they didn't film over the weekend. So I think I was there Thursday, Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I got the SAG rate for a whole week.
Yeah, that's not bad pay.
No, I think it was like $3,000. And that was for 10 lines, 10 measly lines.
Yeah, but they have to pay you to be on set, and it's usually about $600 a day. So $3,000 works out about right. And
plus, I drive out to Canyon Country, and I get there. And of course, I'm like the new guy. I've got my script with me, and I'm rehearsing my line. And they show me where my trailer is. It's one of those trailers where it's a bunch of them attached to one large.
Multi
but I've got my own little space. I'm in there, and I'm in there, and I hear a knock at the door. I go, okay, now it's game time. I open up, and the guy goes, yeah, it's lunch break. So I go out, and they have this enormous spread of food. They've got food trucks. You can get sushi, you can get steak, you can get a burger, you can get vegan. And there's a table full of snacks. To this day, I wonder, how do these people make any money? And that was just for that one day of shooting. So
it's incredible that a lot of people don't realize, or maybe they do and just don't think about it. But when we watch a TV show and it's on the screen for, let's say, a 30-minute sitcom, They'll take a week to rehearse and shoot it. They're paying transportation in some cases. They have housing in the things of minor green rooms for everybody, in their case, a trailer room. They have food for everybody, drink for everybody. You're getting paid whether you're working or not. I mean, just to be able to experience that for a week, actually, Michael, is something that I'm sure you cherish and was a great experience.
And the best part of that whole thing was we went in for the table read beforehand. No, I didn't work with any of the kids. Actually, I didn't work with. No, I worked with the kid who played Reese, the older brother. That was the segment, but we weren't actually on set at the same time. He was someplace else shooting, and I was doing my little shtick. But at the table read, Bryan Cranston and Jane Kaczmarek, the parents, went around the table and introduced themselves to everybody and welcomed all of us, whether they knew us or not. Some of the folks they'd worked with before, hey, Bob, hey, Marilyn, how you doing? But they came up and there was no showbiz pretense about it. They were just nice people. Hi, what's your name? Oh, what part are you playing? Okay. Well, welcome to the set. Welcome to the
great.
Show. Yeah, that's why to this day I love Bryan Cranston. Not only is he funny and he's a great actor, but just that small kindness that he and Jane showed everybody. That'll last with me forever.
And there are some prima donnas in the business, but when you get down to working with them, you become their peer and you're a fellow actor. And it kind of like in the comedy community, you're a peer group and people will normally help and support you. And I think it's great that you had that experience. How exciting is that? So you spent some time in LA doing theater, and you got this one television shot on Malcolm in the Middle. Now, I know that in about 2006, you came back up to San Jose.
Yes. Our daughter was having our first grandchild.
Oh, that's exciting.
And my wife had always been supportive of me gallivanting around the country doing my little comedy shtick. She had the real job. She had the real job with Sun Microsystems, right? The job was benefits.
Right.
And I asked her straight up, I said, look, you want to go back up to the Bay Area to be with Aline, and we didn't know our granddaughter's name at the time, with Aline and the baby, right? She goes, yeah. I said, well, let's go. And she said, well, what about your career? I said, I've had my career. I've had a career. I did TV. I've done some movies. I've done stand-up, which was my dream.
Yeah, you'd spent over 10 years doing your art form.
Yeah, exactly. And well, staying on the same subject, I didn't have the obsessive nature to follow through at all costs, to succeed, quote unquote. Good example, Patton Oswalt, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Patton booked a gig in Portland where he was the feature, but he booked the gig, got me as the headliner, Kurt Weitzman as the opener. And the story I tell people is the reason Patton Oswalt is where he is today is because after the show, I would hang out with the audience. We'd have a few cocktails. It was just he was back in the condo writing bits for MTV. he had and he admits it. He has this obsessive nature. This
the drive.
You kind of got to be crazy to really succeed at all costs. You have to put everything aside to be available at a moment's notice, to go to a party, to go to a coffee shop, someplace where somebody's going to be at.
Any opportunity to be seen or entertained, if you were driven to be a success, as some of the people that we've all heard of, Saget, Coulier, Carvey, any of those guys, you have to jump on every opportunity. And that's not for everybody. It's not everybody's place in life to want to do that. And I totally relate to the fact that you got your time in, you hit some of your goals, you had some great memorable experiences, and it was time to move on. I mean, even for me, I ran the clubs. I was on stage almost every night for 21 years. And one of the hardest things to do was to step off that stage and walk away from all that. But I'll always cherish that moment of time, but my life has gone on and I've had other great experiences. So,
without question. And the thing too is, Patton had talent. Dana Carvey had talent. Coulier, Saget, they had. Because you can be. There was LA is full of people who are obsessed, focused, psychotic about making it in the biz, but they just don't have any talent. They can't act, they can't sing, they can't dance, but they're still there. They're
right.
And
it's like having a car without an engine,
yeah,
as opposed to the guys you're mentioning. They're a race car that never stop and drive and have the talent to make it happen. Well, that's a great analogy. Now, once you got back into San Jose and you settled in with your granddaughter, congratulations. Best job in the world, wonderful. Grandparent.
She's wonderful and she's perfect. She's a straight A student. She's
awesome.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Did you find yourself back in show business at all?
I had gotten my my taste of theater in Los Angeles. So as I told Kristen, I said, look, we'll go back to the Bay Area. I said, I'm into theater now, not comedy anymore. And I said, there was like close to 300 theater things in the Bay Area, the whole Bay Area, including Sacramento. I said, and if I want to get involved again in movies or TV or commercials, whatever, I said, there's San Francisco. There's casting agencies up there. They're not, they're not as close to the pulse of, showbiz and such. But, I mean, that's where I got my first couple of commercials. I did my 2 episodes of Nash Bridges up there, out of San Francisco. So, there's work available if I decided to pursue it.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to sidetrack. It's funny you mentioned the TV show Nash Bridges. That was a Don Johnson vehicle that actually taped in San Francisco. And I can turn on almost any episode and see somebody I've worked with. All the comics got shots to do a guest spot and they weren't playing comics. They were acting in these various Nash Bridges shows. So just something I wanted to share with the audience, because it is true that because there were so many entertainers in the Bay Area and they were actually taping and shooting in the Bay Area, all those people like you got work. That's great.
Well, I actually had 2 separate episodes, and one I played a bartender. And I actually went to the bar beforehand. I asked the guy, I said, look, do you mind if I bartend for a few hours just to get the feel of the bar? Because I used to bartend back in my food and beverage days. The guy goes, yeah, no problem. So I did that. But here's a sweet little story. We're doing it's the other one where there's a computer chip thief, and I'm part of the gang. And so we're in this condo someplace in San Francisco. And so everything is set up. And with Don Johnson, he wanted to show up, do his stuff, and get the hell out. He never wanted to linger. He wanted to do no exposition, nothing. He just wanted to show up, do his stuff, and leave. So we get there. And, call him Deej. Deej, are you ready? And he goes, yeah, I'm ready. But, let's do this thing. So we do the scene, and this poor old guy, and he must have been in his 60s or whatever, the sound guy. He goes, oh, man, I'm sorry. I forgot to turn the sound on.
Oh, geez, no.
Johnson goes insanely ballistic, creative profanity. I mean, he was just livid because somebody was taking time away from whatever the hell it was he was doing. He's walking around just spitting fire, but on the table in front of me was a deck of cards laid out playing solitaire. So he's walking around, God, son of a bitch, and so he picks up the cards and he takes the cards and he shuffles them. He's just shuffling them in his hand just angrily. And he spreads them out. He hands them to him. He goes, pick a card. And so I reach over and goes, not that one. I pick another card. He goes, look at it. Remember it. Do you remember it? Yeah, okay. And he puts it back in the deck. Shuffle. And he picks it up and he holds out the card. He goes, is this your card? And it was. I said, yeah, it was. And he picked the card. And at that moment, they go, Deej, we're ready. Boom. He had dissipated the negative energy with that little thing.
Doing a magic trick.
Yeah. So we did the scene, and he left.
But you had your Don Johnson moment.
Oh yeah, because he, the couple of times I guess I worked with him. That's the way he was. He would show up on set. He never wanted to be bothered beyond. Well, Sinatra used to be like that. He'd do a take of a movie. He goes, is that good? Yeah, let's do another one. No, if that's good, let's move on.
Right. Oh, that's a great story. And
that's my Don
again,
Johnson story.
and again, another great memory that stand-up comedy led you to, because if you had never gotten on stage on that initial improv group and then developed into a stand-up and got all that experience, it wouldn't have led you to theater and then led you to TV spots and the chance to interact the way you did. I'm jealous. It sounds like a great memory. Congratulations.
Oh, there's so many good ones. It gave me an opportunity to use the creativity that I'd always had, but that a lot of people, especially growing up in Minnesota, a lot of people said, "Why are you doing that? That's stupid. Don't talk like that. Why are you being that way?" It's like, the killer of dreams.
Yeah. No, a lot of people don't want to see other people be happy.
Exactly. So,
thanks so much for sharing these stories, Michael. I got to tell you, I mentioned it before. I'm going to say it one last time. It was a real joy to have you be a regular performer at Laughs Unlimited. And the character tree, I'm actually a little saddened that it's long gone, but it was one that nobody will forget.
Well, Scott, it has to be, because I can't fit into my chaps anymore.
You outgrew your leather chaps.
I've still got them. I still got the leather jacket. I've got the gloves. I got the chaps. But there's no way in hell I could put them on anymore.
Well, that's okay. We had our moment. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to share that moment with you. Stay tuned. We have a little stand-up comedy from Tree coming up in just a minute. But first, I want to say thank you, Michael, for sharing your comedic life and stories with my audience. And doing this, it's just been a joy to reconnect and catch up.
Well, and thank you for providing a vehicle for a lot of comedians to get their chops, to experience the, what it's like to work in a club, a real club, not a crappy little one-nighter, but to work in a real club, for a week, to know what it's like. The beauty of it, to know what it's like to wake up in the morning and go, I don't have to do anything until 8:00 tonight.
Yeah, rough job, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then working for Scott, if I'm the opener, I just got to go do 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang. And that's my day. I have to work for 15 minutes a day. Oh, poor me.
Well,
I need another nap.
It was a unique career, and you made the best of it. I'm so happy for how it treated you, and that you've had a chance to resettle yourself and find yourself in a place that makes you comfortable and happy, with terrific memories of this art form bringing you this unique life. So anyway, let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, here comes some comedy from Tree. Thanks, Michael.
Listen to this. Thanks, Scott.
You guys like magic? You were correct the first time, because kiddies, magic is illusion, magic is a lie. What I propose to do for you now is honest to goodness Merlin stuff. Are you willing to trust me with that? No doubt, because obviously I am the alpha male. Now, this is an ordinary glass of water. If anyone doesn't believe me, feel free to come forward and try it. Darling, want to try it? Don't worry, this thing's just about cleared up, see? Settle. I take the water, I recite the magic incantation. Eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog, adder's fork and blindworm's sting. These are a few of my favorite things. It's no longer water, now it's wine. I don't need all of you to believe me, just 12 of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Michael West doing the character Tree live on stage. As you heard, he had great control of the audience and was very funny. We want to thank Michael for doing our interview today. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tell your friends and share the podcast. We're growing. See you next Sunday. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.